As we continue our discussions on the budget of 2014, presented under the theme A Better Guyana for All Guyanese, joining me on this round is the Honorable Bishop Min Edghill, Minister within the Ministry of Finance. Minister Edghill, every year we see the budget presented in Parliament is getting bigger and bigger in terms of the amount of money that is there, that is allocated. This year is about $220 billion compared to about $208 billion last year, and that was higher than the year before. What is driving the process and making the budget as big or bigger than each year in the past?
Well, Niaz, let me thank you first of all for having me on the program. And let me take this opportunity to publicly congratulate my colleague and the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, for a well-crafted, delivered, innovative budget. And to say that certainly I'm sure all the technical people and the planners at the Ministry of Finance who have played their part and their role should also be congratulated in putting this together. What is important about Budget 2014, like we would have seen being presented to the National Assembly, its growth, it is reflective of that dynamism that exists in our country. Our capacity to generate income and our vision of allocating that income in a manner that creates development for Guyana. Now, what is important is that you can have a huge budget of any amount that you so desire, but you'll be putting the country into further deficit because you're either borrowing to facilitate that. But in the case of our budgets, this is coming because of the realism that is taking place in our society. Our revenue generating capacity is there. More and more people are paying their income taxes. We've seen growth in that revenue collection. We have been able to inspire confidence as it relates to foreign direct investment. We have been able to see the private sector making their contribution as it relates to opening up the economy to make it more buoyant. And as a result of those benefits that are accrued from such activities, we are able to do more. So every time we speak about a larger budget, it's not just to make the boast that this year it's more money than last year, but it's a reflection of prudent fiscal management that allows for expansion and in many cases the accelerating of the developmental agenda, and we're able to accommodate it within the fiscal space to see these things happen, as you would have noticed being outlined in the budget measures that were announced by the Minister of Finance.
Before we examine some of the measures, I want to come back to growth. You mentioned growth. From what I understand, a 5.6% growth is projected for 2014. Mm-hmm. But when the Honorable Minister presented the budget, he also alluded to some figures. And if you could just use the Caribbean region here, clearly this figure is far higher than what is actually happening in the Caribbean. So something good has to be happening here in Guyana for this to happen.
Definitely. And we need not to make light of this, because this is happening for the first time in the history of Guyana, that we're having 8 years of uninterrupted growth. 8 years of uninterrupted growth. And this is unprecedented. Never happened before in Guyana. And this is taking place in an environment where globally and regionally, where there's serious challenges. some of these years when we have experienced positive growth as a country was when we had the global financial crisis. We had the fuel crisis. But as a government, over the period, we would have made a tough choices, or I should say tough decisions at the policy level. And we have not been squandering or wasting, but we have been with a high level of prudence, looking to ensure that the investments are made where it's necessary, not just to please the people, but to ensure that when those investments are made, it is furthering the developmental agenda and is at the same time creating that enabling environment for more things to happen.
There was a time when Guyana was basically scorned upon by even here in the Caribbean region. And here, years after, eight successive years of sustained growth, clearly Guyana has positioned itself now as a leader in this part of the world.
Well, we must remind ourselves there was a time when Guyana walked around with the begging bowl, so to speak. And I'm sure that with the kind of development, the kind of relative, and I use the word relative prosperity, that is being experienced in our nation, Guyanese are proud. They are proud to be identified as Guyanese. And we should make no bones about it, and we should not be shy about it. The work of former President Bayer Jagdeo, the framework that he would have put in place that would have brought us to what we are seeing here now, must never be played down. It must never be played down. There is always some in our country who would want us to forget that he ever served as president and did play a role. I recall one person saying that he could be considered the architect of a modern Guyana. Minister Ashley Singh has performed very well, managed very well in the environment of a cabinet where every sector is demanding and every sector would seem to want more than is allocated to them. You're always torn between a rock and a hard place, and you have to make that judgment call. Here are my colleagues, they would like to have more, whether it's for health or education or for infrastructure or for water or for housing. But allocations must be made within a context of what is affordable, what would not endanger our future, and at the same time creating a platform that would help us to develop and to go forward.
So would you say then that there is a direct link from the budgets that are presented by the PPP Civic Administration over the years and the restoration of Guyana's international image?
Definitely, definitely. And in no small measure too. It is important for us to recognize that one of the strengths of the PPPC administration is not a whimsical action, but the deliberate and careful planning and execution. When President Ramatar became president, he indicated that he intends to continue on that which was built. It wasn't just about preserving the legacy of the former president, but it was a recognition that a solid foundation existed, and what needs to be done now is the building of that infrastructure. 2012 budget, 2013 budget, and now we have 2013 and 14 budget. All have been addressing different areas of building on that foundation that has been made. Last year's emphasis on young professionals, developing them, giving them that enabling environment to blossom and to develop. Look at 2014's budget. One of the measures that were announced, $1 billion allocated for rural enterprise development. This is allowing our communities to develop. It is to bring out that entrepreneurial ability within our people. It is about job creation. It's about people not just merely depending upon the public sector for employment. So this budget addresses the issue. For example, the young people in the Essequibo Coast, we would have often heard a complaint that there's not enough jobs in the Essequibo because the public sector could only hire so much and no more. You would have heard similar cries like that in region number 5. And historically, people from the region 5, which is the West Berbice area, told me that the only jobs you could have had is either you joined the army or you came and joined the police force or you came to the fire service or the prison service. People saw that as the only avenue of public sector jobs. With this whole vision and envisioning and our capacity to think and to see, and the injection that we'll be giving to rural enterprise development, it allows for people right in their communities to be able to find meaningful employment by doing things, and not only to start up, but even to grow. Because you could start something, a business, agro-processing, a small manufacturing, but you must also have the capacity to grow. And we are saying we are prepared to give you a hand to get going, but we're also prepared to give you a hand to grow.
And if I may interject here, it's about also, based on what you're saying, to create jobs as well, and also to preserve jobs. Because when I listen to the $6 billion that has been allocated to help Gaisuku,
Yes.
There was a call about 2 weeks ago by the opposition that maybe these estates should be closed and Guyana should get out of sugar. But here we are seeing an injection of $6 billion.
Well, the PPPC administration will never apologize. And we will never be shy in saying that we will support the sugar industry. And we have done it over the years by putting our money where our mouth is. It is now for the opposition to tell the people of Guyana where their mouth is on this particular matter. Because sugar played her role, and sugar will continue to play her role in the economy. Sugar is going through a hard time, just like other sectors would have gone through difficult periods in times past, and the government would have made the necessary investments in those sectors to stabilize it. We have the situation of bauxite, where government carried bauxite for many years until they were able to get the necessary investments from some of the companies that we now have here in the country. And bauxite, while not doing as well as it used to, it is now stabilized, it has preserved jobs, it is now doing things on the positive side. So we will never be shy about sugar, because you got close to 21,000 workers you're talking about who are engaged directly and indirectly in the sugar belt. You're talking about more than 100,000 Guyanese who are involved. So when people want to know what's in the budget for me, I would say to every sugar worker's family, that $6 billion injection that is coming from the budget to Gaisuku means your livelihood could be preserved. So while we are seeking to create new avenues, while we are seeking to develop what has been mushrooming and blossoming, we are seeking to preserve that which has been, to ensure stability and continual prosperity for people throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. We haven't only done it with sugar. In the agriculture sector, the budget has made allocations for $500 million for rice. And rice has been doing very well. But you know, we still have challenges in the rice industry, that they must be supported, because we're not just thinking short term, but we're thinking long term. And in the agriculture sector, there's also a $200 million allocation for other crops development, because it will be foolish for us as a country, just in our agricultural enterprise, just to depend upon one product. So whether it's rice, whether it's sugar, whether it's other crops, whether it's agriculture, we will continue to diversify and to expand, because every time you diversify and you expand, you are growing the economy. And as we grow the economy, it's better for all of us.
So it's a people-oriented budget again.
Well, and I did say that before the budget was read, that all Guyanese will have something to smile about and to be happy about, because our budget are people-centered, people-oriented. So we're taking care of our children. Let's talk about how we're taking care of our children. Right now, before budget 2014, every child gets free school uniforms. We provide the textbooks. We provide the exercise books. We provide the meals. In some areas in the interior, we help with the boat and engines, and with fuel for, in some instances, for children to get to school. Now, budget 2014 is saying every child that is in nursery school, primary school, and secondary school is entitled to a education grant of $10,000. It means that when that mother or that single mom or that father or grandparent who's taking care of that child gets the school uniform and they have $10,000 as an education grant, they can help with transportation for the child to go to school. They can buy the haversack for the child to carry the books to school. Maybe they can buy the boots for the child to attend school. It is up to the individual to be able to use that. And so you think about a family that has 3 children of school age, one in primary school, one probably just started secondary school, and one in nursery school, depending on the family planning that they would have done. That family is entitled to $30,000 to help with the educating of our children. And you know, when you educate your nation, you're growing your nation, you're creating the environment for the prosperity of the nation. As it relates to our seniors, we have continued to make investments in our elderly in the country. We have raised old age pension phenomenally over the years. We have grown old age pensions from $300 and something to just last year, they were receiving $12,500. As from the 1st of May this year, Budget 2014 makes provision for a 5% increase, which will bring them to $13,125 per month. But apart from that, every old age pensioner who's a GPL customer, we are now continuing to support their electricity charges. Last year, the government was able to contribute to electricity charges for senior citizens to $20,000. This year, we have seen a 50% increase. Now, if the government don't do this for senior citizens, what we will actually be doing is causing the pension that the elderly would have received to have to be used to pay back electricity. And in many cases, it would have been more. It would have been more because, you know, the price of electricity in Guyana needs to be faced with a reality, and that's why we were going after the Amalia. And every person who's still crying out about the cost of electricity must remember that this administration went to the parliament to fix this issue of electricity, to ensure that we have cheap electricity, reliable supply of electricity and a renewable form of electricity. And that's what the Amalia would have provided. It was the opposition who blocked that major investment.
So for the senior citizens, then they're getting $30,000 as of budget 2014
Yes.
per year to
For
support their
electricity.
electricity charges, and now
And
$13,125
$25 in
per
pension.
month, and also they continue to benefit from what
Free,
subsidy.
yes, water subsidies and all of the other things. And we must remind people that old age pension was never meant to be an income on which people solely live on. This is a government grant. This is a government grant. This is not stopping the person from having access to their NIS pension. This is, some of them still have government pensions because they are retired teachers, retired nurses, retired army officers. So you have your government pension, you have your NIS pension, and government, because you are of that age, you get a grant. And that's what every person in the old age pension register will be getting. And what is important to note, that when old age pension was negligible, a couple $100 and so on, a lot of seniors never used to pick it up. But since we have increased pensions phenomenally, and it is where it is at now, we have more than 42,500 pensioners on the register.
And if I recall, there was a time when you had to do a means test.
Then you have to do a means
qualify.
test. That was eliminated by the PPPC administration. So because they figured that if you were already getting a government pension, or you were getting an NIS pension, or you were of a particular income bracket, you didn't get your old age pension. We have removed all of that. The only thing that you have to show in order to be qualified old age pension is that you have reached the age.
Minister, we have 5 minutes left or thereabouts. Two things quickly I want you to talk about. There are times when budgets are presented and some people will be listening very keenly. Do I have to pay any new taxes coming this budget? 2014, it was clear, no new taxes.
But I don't think that expectation exists any longer in Guyana. That was some time of a different era, because as it relates to PPPC budgets that we would have been seeing, while the economy is growing, while the budget is becoming larger, we have been able to balance the budget and to ensure that the country is not further plunged into debt burdens without the implementation of new taxes. And I think that is something that should be signaled to show the wise management of the economy by the Minister of Finance and the PPPC administration. But notably, Niaz, and I think we could hardly close this program without addressing this particular issue, is the way Budget 2014 addresses what might be called a national problem. The issue of garbage, the way our communities look, Georgetown in particular. We were bold enough to have placed as one of the budget measures $1 billion for a cleanup Guyana program. We must create a new image of Guyana. Georgetown must look different. An allocation of $500 million alone for Georgetown. I've noticed the mayor making a wild comment, probably not even understanding how it will benefit him as a citizen, not as mayor, as a citizen. It is not necessary. Now, who would believe that Georgetown, its drains, its alleyways, the parapets, the whole issue about how we dispose of garbage, the bins that are needed, the communities that are still struggling with the whole issue of its appearance, the bushes, the clogged drains and so on, don't need this money. Government have seen the need. We have heard the cry. We have responded to the needs of people. And I think this is something that should not be underemphasized. It should not be played down. That injection of $1 billion, because as we educate our children, as we ensure that the health centers have doctors and medicines and all the rest of it, the care of the environment is important. How we look as a people, what happens in our streets and our villages is important.
And if I recall, it was the same mayor who was saying some time back that he doesn't have money to clean the city.
Well, Mr. Suban, the mayor, depending on what day of the week, he says different things. So I would not even worry too much with
In
that.
closing, the opposition said yesterday, the leader of the main opposition said yesterday that the budget 2014 is a maintenance budget, if I'm quoting him correctly, is a maintenance budget and basically nothing to shout about, paraphrasing him. What are your comments on that?
Well, I don't expect too much of praises from the opposition leaders, but they should listen to what their supporters are saying. Because while they are saying this is a maintenance and a repair budget, they need to put their ears to the ground and hear what the people of Guyana are saying, because the people of Guyana have responded very well to this budget, because all the parents who will be getting that education grant, they know that's not a maintenance budget. They know this is something that they've never had before, and they'll be in the line queuing up to ensure that they get it so that their children could benefit. All the communities, the NDCs, the municipalities, apart from their subvention that they got of $3 million and all the rest of it, they recognize that they had a big issue as it relates to the environment and the cleaning up the place and making sure that we look better and we maintain our health standards. They would not be calling this maintenance, because this is not something that they ever had before. The people who benefit directly from GPL subsidy, because we have put in place GPL, money for GPL. And, well, if he wants to call it a maintenance budget, let me say this. We have maintained our word, and we have kept faith with the agreements that were made. If we didn't have to put $3 billion plus into Linden electricity, we could have spent more money on pensions, we could have allocated more money to healthcare, but it is $3 billion that is being spent on electricity for Linden, subsidizing electricity for Linden. So if we didn't have to put this $3.2 billion, I think it is, into Linden and Kokwani electricity, we could have been able to do a lot more. But we have kept our word. That is a matter that is still yet needs to be resolved, because there should have been a phased approach as it relates to the subsidy for Linden. But because of the agreements that we have made, and we are honorable people, we have continued to provide that.
On that note, Minister, I want to thank you very much for taking time out, being here and to share your thoughts on the budget, and to congratulate you and your ministry and the Honorable Dr. Ashni Singh and all those involved for presenting Budget 2014. The Honorable Bishop Min Edghill, Minister within the Ministry of Finance, as we continue here our discussions on Budget 2014. Nia Saban saying so long and thanking you for watching.